Hello and welcome to my channel. I have 3 fun DIY projects planned for you today and I'm so excited to share them. But before we get started, please hit the subscribe button right there and go ahead and click the notification bell next to it. Then you'll be notified every time I post a new DIY video. I have some really exciting boho, farmhouse, on the cheap that don't look cheap type videos coming up that you're not going to want to miss, so go ahead and hit those 2 buttons, and without further ado, let's get started. For this first DIY, you're going to need a bowl or a shallow planter. You don't have to go out and buy anything, just use something that you have. You don't actually need one this big, it can be smaller. You're going to need some Dollar Tree rocks and one of these lantern sterno warmer fuel things. I'm using the strainer. This is a completely optional part I ended up using to cover the sterno, and then I ended up taking it off later on when we lit it, so don't even bother with this part. You're just going to put the lantern fuel in the bowl, and then you're going to place your rocks around it. So depending on the size bowl you use, you just need enough rocks to cover up to that smaller ring of the lantern fuel. And this is what you end up with. You end up with a nice little fire bowl that adds a nice ambiance to your table without spending a lot of money. This project was about $5 and I love how it turned out. For this next DIY, we're going to be making a beaded garland. So you are going to need some cotton twine. I got mine from the dollar store. You'll need a needle and wood beads. I'm using beads that I had left over from Michael's, but I also have some from Amazon that I will link below for you. I wanted my finished garland to be about 16 inches, so I cut my rope at 32 inches. Depending on the size and length that you would like your garland, just cut your rope accordingly. And I'm just stringing them on in no particular order, just alternating between larger and smaller wood beads until I reach the end. Then I'm just tying it in a couple knots to make the beads not fall off. Now that you have your knots tied, you're just going to take the string and wrap it around 3 fingers about 30 times. You can go ahead and cut it in half, and then I just lay mine out flat, and you're going to cut another piece of string and tie it around the center. I usually do 2 knots because I don't want it to come apart, so tie 2 tight knots. Now that we have our knot tied, you're going to bring it together and then cut another string and tie it around towards the top area to create your tassel. Do 2 knots again, and then you're going to thread the ends on the needle, and you're going to draw it through the string that you just tied to kind of tuck those in, and then you're going to make another one. Now you're going to put one of your tassel strings through the needle and use it to thread it through the knot on one of the ends of your garland and tie that off, and Then you're going to thread that string through your end of your tassel to kind of hide those, like we did previously. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now just trim your ends and you have the perfect decorative garland. I love how these turned out. You could stain them if you wanted. I love wrapping them around vases, candles, draping them over books. They're just the perfect decor piece. This next DIY is probably my favorite. I love how it turned out. I used this vase from the Dollar Tree and I ended up using 2 bags of these glass beads. I just glued them on in no particular order, just kind of spacing them. I would actually recommend, after doing this, to do a row at the top and then a row at the bottom and then kind of stagger them in and fill them in between. They ended up not quite fitting, so some of my beads ended up being above the rim, which I actually love, but if you want it to be flush, then do a row at the top and a row at the bottom and then kind of add them in between. After I got all the beads situated, I put on a coat of primer, and then after your primer dries, we're gonna go back in and do a coat of lightweight spackling in between all of the beads to give it a fun, like, concrete kind of grouted look. For this, I'm just using the lightweight spackling from the Dollar Tree. They also have caulking. That might work too, but just whatever you have on hand. If you have concrete mixture, you can use that, or grout. And I'm just pressing it in, and you're just gonna go over the whole thing and press it into the cracks really good and kind of smooth it out. After I got all the cracks filled in, I went in with a paper towel and just kind of smoothed over the edges and over the caulking to kind of smooth it out a little bit, but I still wanted the rough kind of textured look on it. So once you do this, just kind of let it dry, and then we're gonna do a final coat of paint. optional step after you put your final coat of paint on is to go back in with a chalk paint or some kind of matte paint and flick on some flecks of black to give it kind of more textured and a different look. So this is what it turned out like, and I absolutely... Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you loved these DIYs, and let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. And if you haven't already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any DIYs. Bye! Have a great day!